the entire life story of Julius Caesar. Welcome to the show, you lucky few who found your way here. Come into the warmth, take off your shoes, and take your place by the fire. Someone will fetch something warm to drink. Settle in, settle down, and let the story begin. You are lying comfortably now, breathing slowly and deeply. Let your body settle into stillness. Feel the weight of the day lifting from your shoulders. Tonight, you will journey back through more than 2,000 years, to the world of ancient Rome, to walk beside one of history's most remarkable figures. But this is not a journey of urgency or excitement. It is a slow, gentle drift through time, through marble corridors and sun-drenched forums, through distant campaigns and quiet moments of reflection. Let yourself relax completely. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Just breathe, and let the story unfold around you like a soft blanket of history. Close your eyes now. Feel yourself drifting backward through the centuries. The modern world fades away. You are stepping onto ancient stones, worn smooth by countless footsteps. The air smells different here, of olive oil and incense, of bread baking in clay ovens, of the Tiber River flowing steadily past the 7 hills. This is Rome in the final century before the Common Era, a city of temples and tenements, of ambitious men and endless intrigue. And into this world, on a warm summer day in the year of 100 BCE, a child is born, a child that will forge its destiny and bring change to everything. Part 1. Early life and the making of an aristocrat. You are standing in the Suburra district of Rome. It is not the Rome of gleaming marble temples and grand forums. Not yet. The Suburra is dense and restless, a maze of narrow streets, crowded markets, the smell of cooking fires and livestock lingering in the air. By day it's loud, chaotic, alive. But now, as evening settles, the noise softens into a low murmur. In this neighborhood lives the Julii family. They are patricians, members of Rome's ancient aristocracy, but theirs is an old name with fading wealth. The family's political influence has waned over generations. Their house is respectable, but modest. No vast estates, no extravagant displays of power, and yet they possess something far more powerful than money: ancestry. The Julii claim descent from Venus herself, the goddess of love and beauty, and from Iulus, the son of Aeneas, the Trojan hero who, according to Roman legend, fled the burning city of Troy and laid the foundations for Rome's future greatness. In Rome, lineage is power, and the Julii carry theirs like a sacred inheritance. Inside the house, preparations are underway. It is July 100 BCE. The Roman summer presses heavily against the city walls, thick with heat. Women move with quiet efficiency through the household. Oil lamps flicker. Prayers are whispered to the gods of childbirth. A child is born. He will be named Gaius Julius Caesar, as his father was, and his grandfather before him. A name passed down, generation to generation, heavy with expectation. You cannot see the future as you look upon this newborn. You cannot see the battlefields of Gaul, the crossing of the Rubicon, or the Senate floor stained with blood. But even here, in this modest house in the Suburra, there is a sense of destiny. This boy will be raised to restore his family's standing, to defend its honor, to surpass his ancestors. Rome does not know it yet, but it has just received one of the most consequential figures in its history. Part 2. A republic under strain. The young Caesar is born into a Rome that is no longer stable. The republic is nearly 5 centuries old. Its institutions are ancient, its traditions revered. Power is meant to be balanced, shared between the Senate, dominated by aristocratic families, and the popular assemblies, where the voice of the people carries weight. But that balance is cracking. Years before Caesar's birth, Rome was shaken by the reforms of the Gracchi brothers, Tiberius Gracchus and Gaius Gracchus, men who tried to redistribute land to the poor and curb the power of the elite. Both were killed in political violence, not executed by law, beaten to death in the streets. The message was clear: reform could mean blood. Then came civil war. Generals began doing the unthinkable, marching their armies on Rome itself. The old rules were dissolving. Loyalty was shifting away from the Senate and toward powerful military commanders who could promise land, wealth, and glory. The Republic still stands, but it trembles. Caesar is too young to understand this, yet he is growing up in its shadow. Education of a Roman noble. Inside the household in the Suburra, life seems calm by comparison. You watch the boy seated at a small table, tracing letters into a wax tablet. The stylus moves carefully, deliberately. Mistakes are smoothed away with the flat end, and he begins again. His mother, Aurelia Cotta, oversees much of his upbringing. She is disciplined, politically aware, and highly respected in Roman society. In elite Roman households, mothers could wield enormous influence, and Aurelia shapes her son with intention. Caesar would later speak of her with deep admiration. His father, Gaius Julius Caesar, is frequently absent, advancing along the cursus honorum, the rigid ladder of public offices that defines a Roman aristocrat's career. Quaestor, praetor, and then consul, and if all the stars align, perhaps finally even proconsul. But that is still far away. Each step brings honor. Each step demands alliances. From an early age, Caesar understands that his name alone is not enough. It must be restored to prominence. The boy proves exceptionally quick. He absorbs lessons with ease, showing both memory and confidence. He studies Latin, the language of law and politics. Julius Caesar not only spoke Latin as his native tongue, but intensely studied its grammar and rhetoric to master a precise, elegant style. As an aristocrat, he received formal education in Latin speech theory. He even wrote a treatise, De Analogia, to argue for using logical, clear language. He studies Greek, the language of culture and philosophy. No Roman noble is considered truly educated without mastering it. He reads Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. He learns of Achilles, who chose glory over long life, of Odysseus, who survived through cunning as much as strength. These are not just stories. They are models of greatness. He studies rhetoric, the art that truly governs Rome. In the Republic, power does not flow only from swords. It flows from speech. A man must command the forum. He must persuade the Senate. He must defend allies in court and dismantle enemies with words alone. You can hear the tutor's steady voice as Caesar recites passages from memory. His tone grows more confident each time. Outside, the city hums, vendors shouting, carts grinding against stone, distant arguments drifting through the streets. But inside this room, there is only preparation. The golden afternoon light spills across the floor. The faint scent of wax and lamp oil lingers in the air. The world feels still, yet history is moving. The Republic is changing, and this boy, disciplined, ambitious, absorbing every lesson, is being shaped by forces he does not yet see. Soon, those forces will reach into his own life, and when they do, he will not remain merely a student of power. He will begin to pursue it. Death and defiance. When Caesar is 15, his childhood ends without ceremony. His father, Gaius Julius Caesar, rises one morning as he always does. He begins to dress. And then, without warning, he collapses. There is no battlefield, no last speech, no drawn-out illness, just silence. For Rome, it is an unremarkable death. For Caesar, it is everything. He is now paterfamilias, head of the household, responsible for his mother, for his sisters, for the dignity of the Julian name. At 15, he steps into legal and social adulthood, whether he is ready or not. The year is 85 BCE, and Rome is tearing itself apart. The terror of Sulla. The general Lucius Cornelius Sulla has marched his legions on Rome, an act that once would have been unthinkable. He seizes control and declares himself dictator. Then begin the proscriptions. Lists of names are posted publicly in the forum. Men declared enemies of the state. Their property confiscated. Their lives forfeit. Anyone may kill them and claim a reward. The Republic becomes a hunting ground. Trust evaporates. Informers whisper. Old alliances collapse overnight. The streets do not merely feel dangerous. They feel contaminated by fear. And Caesar is not neutral in this conflict. Through family ties and marriage, he is connected to Sulla's enemies, particularly Gaius Marius, the great general who had once dominated Roman politics, and to Lucius Cornelius Cinna, another of Sulla's rivals. Most dangerously of all, Caesar is married to Cinna's daughter. Her name is Cornelia. The marriage had been arranged when they were young, a political alliance, nothing unusual for Roman aristocrats. But under Sulla's dictatorship, it becomes a death sentence. The refusal. Sulla sends a command. Caesar must divorce Cornelia. This is not advice. It is not negotiation. It is an order from the most powerful man in Rome. Caesar is 18, still young, not yet fully established. No army, no office, no real protection. And yet, he refuses. No speech, no theatrical defiance. Just a quiet, immovable no. It is a small decision in appearance, a private, marital matter. But in this climate of terror, it is an act of extraordinary risk. Sulla does not tolerate defiance. Caesar's inheritance is confiscated. His priesthood is stripped from him. His name edges toward the proscription lists. He flees Rome. Exile and survival. You can imagine him moving through the Sabine hills, traveling by night, shifting from one safe house to another. The air is cold. Every sound in the dark could be a patrol. He is hunted not because he has done something, but because of what he represents. At one point, he is captured by Sulla's soldiers. Only through bribes and intercession by relatives is he released. He falls ill with malaria during this period. Fever grips him. His body weakens, but he survives. Eventually, influential friends persuade Sulla to relent. The dictator grants a reluctant pardon, and according to later accounts, Sulla warns them. In this Caesar, there are many Mariuses, referring to the general Gaius Marius. He means it as a threat. He sees something dangerous in the young man: ambition, resilience, refusal to submit. The same qualities that fueled his old rival, Gaius Marius. Sulla believes he has spared a boy. History will prove he has spared something far more consequential. For now, Caesar leaves Rome again, not as a fugitive, but as a soldier. He sails east to serve in Asia Minor, to build experience, to wait for safer times. He is no longer merely an aristocratic youth. He is a survivor of Rome's political terror, and he has learned a lesson that will shape the rest of his life. Power is fragile. Mercy is temporary, and hesitation can be fatal. Early career, capture, and resolve. You are at sea. The year is 75 BCE. The Aegean stretches wide and glittering under the sun, deceptively calm. Caesar is 25 years old, sailing near the island of Pharmacusa. He is returning from military service in Asia Minor. There, he has distinguished himself, even earning the Corona Civica, the civic crown, awarded to a Roman who saves the life of a fellow citizen in battle. It is one of the Republic's highest military honors, but that distinction was not easily earned. In Asia Minor, Caesar served under the Roman governor Marcus Minucius Thermus during a campaign against the city of Mytilene on the island of Lesbos. Mytilene had resisted Roman authority. It had sided with Rome's enemies during the recent civil wars. The Republic demanded submission. The siege was not glorious. It was slow, grinding, the kind of warfare that tests patience more than courage. But in one violent assault on the city walls, a Roman soldier fell, wounded and exposed. Caesar did not hesitate. Under missile fire, he pulled the man to safety, shielding him until reinforcements arrived. For this, he was awarded the corona civica, the civic crown. It was made of oak leaves, simple in appearance, enormous in meaning. Any Roman who wore it was entitled to public honor. Even senators were expected to rise in his presence. Caesar was still young, but now he carried visible proof of courage. This mattered. In Rome, reputation is capital, and Caesar had begun to accumulate it. The soft youthfulness is gone now. His voice is deeper. Military service sharpened his body. But Caesar understood something essential. In Rome, battles are won in the forum as often as on the field. So after his service in Asia, he traveled to Rhodes to study rhetoric under the famed teacher Apollonius Molon. Molon was no gentle tutor. He believed that a speaker must command not only logic, but breath, posture, rhythm, the physical dominance of sound itself. Tradition says he made his students practice projecting their voices against the crash of the sea, forcing them to outshout the surf, to shape words so clearly that wind and water could not swallow them. Whether literal or not, the image fits. You can imagine Caesar standing on the shoreline, waves breaking at his feet, repeating phrases again and again, refining tone, controlling breath, learning when to pause and when to strike. He trained not merely to speak. He trained to command attention. His gestures grew precise, his timing deliberate, his delivery controlled, never rushed, never uncertain. His voice deepened. And when he returned to Rome, he did not simply speak. He performed authority. His body hardened by campaign life. He carries himself with quiet assurance, a young aristocrat beginning to test his strength against the world. But Rome does not control these waters. Pirates do. For years, while the Republic has been consumed by civil war, piracy has flourished across the Mediterranean. Swift ships, experienced crews. They strike quickly and vanish just as fast. Merchant vessels are easy prey. Even Roman officials are not safe. And today, neither is Caesar. You see the ships before he does, low in the water, oars cutting cleanly through the waves with disciplined rhythm. There is shouting, a brief, tense maneuver, but no prolonged fight. Caesar and his companions are taken. No bloodshed, no heroics, just efficiency. The pirates know exactly what they have captured. A Roman nobleman, a ransom waiting to be claimed. I am worth more. They assess him. He is young, he is well-dressed, he is very confident. They settle on a price, 20 talents of silver. A large sum, enough to ruin many families. Caesar laughs. Not nervously, not in denial. He laughs because he finds the number insulting. 20 pieces. 20, he says. Do you not know who I am? I am worth at least 50. The pirates hesitate, unsure whether they are dealing with a fool or a man of extraordinary self-belief. Then they agree. 50 talents it will be. His companions are sent to raise the money. Caesar remains behind on the island base, a rocky outcrop surrounded by clear blue water. And what follows is not the behavior of a typical captive. The captive who was not afraid. For 38 days, Caesar lives among the pirates. He does not act like a prisoner. He exercises daily, maintaining his strength. He joins their meals. He participates in their games. He writes poems and speeches, and insists on reading them aloud. When they fail to appreciate his compositions, he scolds them, calls them uneducated, barbarians. He laughs when he says it, and repeatedly, almost playfully, he tells them, "When I am free, I will come back and crucify you all." They laugh. They believe it is a joke. But you, watching closely, notice something. He never says it in anger. He says it as a simple statement of future intent. There is no panic in him, no visible humiliation. He behaves as though this entire episode is a temporary inconvenience, an interruption in a much larger destiny. Even here, surrounded by armed criminals, he assumes superiority. It is not arrogance alone. It is conviction. They laugh. Of course they do. They have captured Roman nobles before, ransomed them, released them, faced no consequences. Rome is distracted, divided, slow to respond. These waters belong to the pirates. And yet, when Caesar says he will return and crucify them, there is no humor in his eyes. No anger either. Just certainty. Another source tells a different story. A contemporary great voice, Cicero, writes about Caesar's time as a captive. And Cicero writes about Caesar's demeanor as a captive in the same spirit. Playful, camaraderie, writing poems, and exercises. But what aroused Caesar's anger was not the fact that he himself was held captive, but instead, it was an official execution where the pirates hung or crucified Roman citizens. According to Cicero, it was the fact that non-Roman citizens had held court over actual citizens. Not the executions themselves, that was merely the result of it all. No, it was the insult that non-Roman citizens held themselves higher than true Roman citizens. It was an insult to all that was Roman. The idea that it meant something to be a citizen. An invisible shield. Only Rome could hold court over Roman citizens. This would concur with later events, when the Egyptians presented Pompey's head to Caesar, thinking they had done him a great service. Instead, they received the full extent of his anger. Whatever the case with the pirates of Pharmacusa might be, what followed was the same. Swift retribution. The ransom arrives. 50 talents of silver, raised from Greek cities, where Caesar has cultivated friendships and influence. The pirates count every bar, every measure. Satisfied, they release him with easy smiles. They expect gratitude, or at least disappearance. Instead, Caesar sails straight to Miletus. There, he approaches the Roman authorities and requests ships to pursue the pirates. The officials hesitate. They deliberate. They consult procedures. Caesar does not wait. He raises his own force. He borrows ships from local communities, recruits crews, promises them a share of the plunder. His energy is immediate, decisive, almost impatient. Within days, he is back at sea. This is important. Most men, freshly freed, would return home, recover, move on. Caesar moves forward. Pharmacusa, revisited. The pirates are still on their island near Pharmacusa, relaxed, dividing silver, confident that the episode has ended. They do not expect retribution so swift. Caesar's ships appear on the horizon. This time, he commands. The engagement is brief. The pirates are captured. The stolen silver, including his own ransom, is recovered. The balance has shifted completely. Weeks earlier, he stood among them as a captive. Now, they kneel in chains. Justice, according to Caesar. By Roman law, piracy is punishable by crucifixion, a death reserved for slaves and the lowest criminals. It is slow, public, excruciating. Caesar hands them over to the authorities in Pergamum for formal sentencing. But when he senses delay, he takes action himself. He orders the executions. The pirates are crucified. And yet, here the complexity emerges. Before they are raised on their crosses, Caesar orders their throats cut. It is a brutal mercy. He keeps his promise, but he spares them prolonged agony. This detail matters. He is not driven by rage, nor by softness. He is driven by resolve. A promise made is a promise executed. The path to power. You are back in Rome now. The city feels somehow older, more ancient than when you left it. The scars of civil war have not faded. Though Lucius Cornelius Sulla is dead, the memory of his proscriptions lingers like smoke after a fire. Men who survived the terror still glance over their shoulders in the forum. Conversations pause when certain names are spoken. Rome is functioning again, but it is not healed. Into this fragile stability walks Gaius Julius Caesar, No longer a hunted youth, no longer a reckless captive of pirates, but a man who has tested himself against danger and survived. Now he turns to politics. In Rome, you do not seize power immediately. You earn visibility first. You watch as Caesar steps into the law courts. The forum is crowded, merchants shouting, senators passing in litters, petitioners arguing cases before magistrates. When Caesar speaks, the noise dims. His delivery is measured, deliberate. He does not rush. His right hand moves with controlled precision, shaping arguments in the air. His voice, trained on distant shores under the discipline of Apollonius Maulon, carries clearly across the open square. He takes bold cases. He prosecutes corrupt governors, men older and better connected than himself. This is dangerous. A failed prosecution could end a young career before it begins. But Caesar understands something fundamental. Fortune favors visibility. Even in defeat, a bold accusation makes a name known, and his name begins to circulate. The currency of obligation. Roman politics runs on obligation, not ideology, not policy. No, the real currency was favors. Caesar begins weaving a web. He supports the ambitions of younger politicians. He assists clients in court. He attends dinners, funerals, festivals. He remembers names. He cultivates loyalty. And he spends. He borrows vast sums of money, far more than is prudent. As military tribune, then quaestor, then aedile, he ascends the cursus honorum, the ladder of offices that defines a Roman aristocratus. But when he becomes aedile, something changes. This office gives him control over public games. And Rome loves spectacle. You see the city transformed, gladiators clashing beneath the sun, exotic animals paraded through the streets, elaborate theatrical productions staged for cheering crowds. Statues honoring Gaius Marius are restored, subtly reviving the legacy of Caesar's uncle by marriage. The people roar their approval. The Senate watches uneasily. By the end of his term, Caesar is drowning in debt. If he loses momentum now, creditors will destroy him. But Caesar does not intend to lose. The gamble of 63 BCE. The year 63 BCE becomes a crucible. Caesar announces his candidacy for Pontifex Maximus. It is audacious. The office is sacred, prestigious, held for life. Traditionally reserved for elder statesmen whose careers are nearly complete. Caesar is 37. His opponents are older, more experienced, respectable. He spends recklessly, bribing voters, securing backing, calling in every favor. On the morning of the election, he reportedly embraces his mother, Aurelia Cotta, and tells her he will return home either as Pontifex Maximus or not at all. The voting is tense. When the results are announced, Caesar has won. Not narrowly, decisively. He moves into the Domus Publica, the official residence in the Roman Forum itself, at the physical and symbolic heart of the Republic. From his windows, he can see the Senate House. Power is no longer distant. It is across the courtyard, the Catiline crisis. But Rome is not calm. That same year, a conspiracy is uncovered. A bankrupt nobleman, Lucius Sergius Catilina, has plotted to overthrow the government. The consul Marcus Tullius Cicero, the person responsible for uncover and catching the conspirators. Cicero was serving as consul that year when he uncovered the plot by Catiline, or Catilina, to overthrow the government, burn down the city, and cancel all debts. Cicero delivered 4 famous, blistering speeches, the so-called Catilinarians, directly attacking Catiline in the Senate. As proof, he had intercepted letters that proved a conspiracy was real. While Catiline fled the city to lead an army, Cicero arrested the co-conspirators staying behind in Rome and had them executed without a trial, a move that eventually got Cicero exiled years later. Many people at the time suspected Caesar was secretly in on it, but there was never any hard evidence to support this claim. The main support for this idea comes from the Senate debate about what to do with the conspirators. While the majority, led by Cicero, wanted swift executions. Caesar was the only major voice who argued against executing them. He suggested life imprisonment instead, arguing that execution was un-Roman without a trial. He spoke so well that he almost convinced the Senate, until Cato the Younger stood up and basically accused Caesar of being a traitor. Caesar barely escaped the Senate house that day because the angry guards outside wanted to kill him, while Cicero argues for immediate execution. Caesar instead argues principle. He warns that executing Roman citizens without trial sets a precedent that future tyrants may exploit. He proposes life imprisonment instead. The chamber grows hostile. Some suspect him of sympathy with radicals. Voices rise. Hands reach towards sword hilts. For a moment, it seems the young Pontifex Maximus may be killed where he stands. He does not yield. The executions proceed anyway. And whatever side you choose to believe, Caesar have shown Rome something vital. He will not be intimidated by majority fury. Reputation and ruthlessness. Soon after, scandal erupts. During the sacred rites of the Bona Dea, a ceremony forbidden to men, the aristocrat Publius Clodius Pulcher is discovered inside Caesar's house, allegedly pursuing an affair with Caesar's wife, Pompeia. Whether guilty or not hardly matters. Caesar divorces her. When pressed, he explains, Caesar's wife must be above suspicion. It is not sentiment, it is strategy. For a Roman noble, dignitas, the accumulation of prestige, honor, visible authority, is life itself. He protects it without hesitation. Spain and the measure of greatness. After serving as praetor, Caesar is assigned to govern Hispania Ulterior. There, he campaigned successfully against rebellious tribes, gaining wealth and military credibility. In Spain, tradition says he stood before a statue of Alexander the Great and wept, lamenting that at his own age, Alexander had conquered the known world while he had achieved so little. Whether legend or fact, the sentiment is revealing. Caesar does not compare himself to senators. He compares himself to conquerors. The alliance that changed Rome. Returning to Rome, he finds two giants locked in rivalry. Pompey, master of eastern conquests, and Marcus Licinius Crassus, whose wealth seems limitless. Caesar does the improbable. He unites them. In private meetings, the three men agree to support one another's ambitions. It is not an official office, not a legal institution, but together they dominate elections, legislation, and policy. The alliance is cemented when Caesar's daughter Julia marries Pompey. Affection grows between them, strengthening political bonds. Rome does not yet understand what has formed, but power has shifted. Consul and something more. In 59 BCE, Caesar becomes consul, the highest elected office in the Republic. He governs aggressively, pushes land reforms for Pompey's veterans, secures financial advantages for Crassus's allies. Opponents protest. He prevails. But the consulship is not his objective. At the end of his term, he secures a 5-year command over Cisalpine Gaul, Transalpine Gaul, and Illyricum, 4 legions. Extended authority. Distance from Rome. Opportunity. The threshold of transformation. Stand still for a moment. Behind you, Rome, marble temples, political intrigue, crowded debates. Ahead, Gaul, vast forests, tribal confederations, unmapped rivers, warriors painted for battle. It is dangerous. It is unstable. It is exactly what Caesar needs, because in Rome, he has influence. In Gaul, he will build legend. And legend is stronger than law. The Gallic Wars, the making of a legend. You stand at the edge of a vast forest. The year is 58 BCE. The air is colder here than in Rome. Thinner, sharper. The scent of pine and damp earth replaces incense and stone. Behind you lies the ordered world of the Republic. Marble temples, Senate debates, political calculation. Ahead lies Gaul. It is not a kingdom, not a unified people. It is a mosaic. Dozens of tribes bound by shifting alliances and ancient grudges. The Romans control only the southern strip along the Mediterranean coast, the province. Beyond that stretches what they call Gallia Comata, long-haired Gaul, a land of warriors, druids, fortified hill towns, and oral traditions older than Rome itself. This is not merely frontier. It is opportunity. The Helvetii migration. The crisis begins with movement. The Helvetii, a powerful Celtic tribe from the region of modern Switzerland, decide to abandon their ancestral lands. Pressured by Germanic tribes to the east and seeking more fertile territory, they burn their own settlements and gather their entire population for migration. Men, women, and the children. Wagons stretching for miles. Ancient sources claim they number over 300,000. The exact number matters less than the scale. This is not a raid. It is a people in motion. Their chosen route passes directly through Roman-controlled territory. They request permission to cross peacefully. Caesar refuses, not because they are necessarily a threat, but because he understands what this moment can become. A migrating nation provides justification. Justification provides war. War provides glory. You watch Caesar move with extraordinary speed. He orders the construction of defensive fortifications along the Rhone River, a wall and trench system stretching nearly 19 miles from Lake Geneva to the Jura Mountains. It is not symbolic. It is practical, physical, intimidating. When the Helvetii attempt to force passage, they are repelled. Denied the direct route, they turn northward, choosing a longer path through allied Gallic territory. Caesar follows. And now the campaign begins in earnest. You march with the legions. Each soldier carries nearly 80 pounds of equipment: shield, javelins, armor, rations, tools. They are not a mob. They are an instrument. Every evening, no matter how exhausted, they construct a fortified camp, ditch, rampart, wooden palisade. Within an hour, a defensible city rises from open ground. The camp is Rome in miniature. Order imposed upon wilderness. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. March, then build a fort. Sleep, then march again. Boots striking earth in unison. Leather creaking. Standards glinting in the pale northern sun. The Battle of the Arar. The Helvetii attempt to cross the Arar River. Slow, broad, deceptively calm. One division has crossed. 3 remain vulnerable on the near bank. Caesar does not hesitate. He attacks at dawn. The Roman legions descend in disciplined formation. The Helvetii, caught mid-movement, cannot properly form ranks. The slaughter is severe. Thousands fall in the confusion. Warriors cut down while attempting to rally. It is swift, decisive. Cold, the survivors flee northward. Caesar pursues, because he understands something crucial. A partial victory inspires resistance. A total defeat inspires submission. Bibracte. The Helvetii are exhausted now. Their migration has turned into retreat. So weeks later, near the Gallic stronghold of Bibracte, the Helvetii turn to fight. Their supplies are nearly gone. The long wagon column, once a symbol of hope, has become a burden. They choose to stand and fight. This time, it is not an ambush. It is a pitched battle. You watch this unfold from rising ground as the armies form. You see them formed on a hill, dense phalanx of shields locked together, long spears angled forward. Their women and children watch from wagons behind the lines. This is not merely a battle. It is a people fighting for survival. This is desperation. Below them, the Roman legions deploy with mechanical precision. Lines straighten. Standards align. Officers move calmly between ranks. Caesar rides along the front, identifiable by his red commander's cloak, speaking directly to the men. No grand theatrics, just clarity. The Roman legions advance uphill. First the pila, heavy javelins, arc through the air, punching into shields, bending on impact, making them useless. Then, the charge. When the Helvetii charge downhill, their war cries echo across the valley. The Romans do not break formation. At the command, thousands of new pilas are thrown. Heavy iron-tipped javelins, arcing forward. They punch through shields, bend on impact, render defenses useless. Then the legions follow suit and advances. Shields forward. Falchions ready. Close quarters combat ensues. Metal striking wood, shields smashing into faces. Disciplined thrusts beneath ribs. No wasted motion. The fighting lasts for hours. The Helvetii reform again and again, retreating toward their wagons, defending their families with desperate fury. But Roman endurance prevails. By nightfall, the Helvetii resistance collapses. Ancient sources claim tens of thousands are dead. The survivors surrender. And Caesar does something calculated. He does not annihilate them entirely. He does not enslave them all. Instead, he orders them back to their homeland, weakened, broken, dependent. This is strategy. A destroyed people leaves a vacuum. A defeated people serves as buffer. If the Helvetii vanish, Germanic tribes may fill the vacuum. Better a weakened buffer state than an empty frontier. Even in victory, Caesar is thinking beyond the battlefield. Even in conquest, Caesar thinks geopolitically. The German threat, Ariovistus. The war could have ended there. Victory over the Helvetii is only the beginning. Gallic tribes now approach Caesar, claiming protection against a greater threat. Germanic warriors under their king, Ariovistus. Ariovistus has crossed the Rhine, settled in Gaul, extracted tribute, taken hostages. Ariovistus is not intimidated by Roman titles. He views Gaul as spoils. The Senate, in earlier years, had recognized him as a friend of Rome. So Caesar sends envoys. But negotiation fails. Caesar knows that Rome's friendship is conditional. Power is not. He demands Ariovistus withdraw. The German king refuses. Now the campaign escalates. Fear in the Roman camp. As the legions march eastward, something unfamiliar spreads through the ranks. Fear. Reports describe the Germans as immense in stature, ferocious in battle, guided by prophetic women who can read the future in omens like the foam of a river. Their reputation precedes them like a storm. Even veteran soldiers hesitate. In the evening camps, whispers replace laughter. Some officers quietly question whether this war is necessary. Caesar recognizes the danger immediately. Not the Germans. Doubt. He calls an assembly of his senior officers. Calmly, he informs them that if the army lacks courage, he will proceed with only the 10th Legion, his most loyal unit. It is not rage, it is a calculated insult. Honor is a weapon. The message spreads through the ranks, and the challenge works. By morning, shame and hesitation has transformed into resolve. No legion wishes to be left behind. The breaking of Ariovistus. When battle comes near the Vosges Mountains, it is savage. The German tribes form in dense masses, shields painted, hair knotted high, voices roaring across the field. The Romans advance steadily. Again, the pila fly. Again, the disciplined push begins. The Germans fight with terrifying strength, but their formations lack the structural flexibility of Roman maniples. When pressured, they cannot easily rotate fresh fighters forward. The Roman line bends but does not break. Then it surges. The German ranks collapse. The rout becomes slaughter as warriors flee toward the Rhine. Ariovistus escapes across the river, his authority shattered. What this means: 2 major threats neutralized in a single year. A migrating nation broken. A Germanic king expelled. Gaul is watching. Rome is watching. And Caesar now commands something extraordinary. Battle-hardened legions who have faced fear and overcome it under his leadership. What began as defensive action has become something larger. It's not consolidation. It is expansion. Because each victory destabilizes the balance of power among the tribes. Each defeated enemy creates new rivalries. Each victory draws new alliances. Each alliance draws new enemies. Campaign follows campaign. Winter quarters are established in conquered territory, meaning the legions remain year-round. This is no longer defensive campaigning. It is systematic conquest. It is an occupation, and it is only the beginning. Over the next years, Caesar will subdue tribe after tribe. The Belgae in the north, the Veneti along the Atlantic coast, with their formidable naval resistance, the Aquitani in the southwest. He will bridge the Rhine, not once, but twice, building a massive wooden structure in just 10 days to demonstrate that even the great river cannot shield Rome's enemies. He will cross the sea to Britain, twice, not to conquer fully, but to prove that even the edge of the known world is within reach. Each campaign expands his legend. Each dispatch he writes, later compiled as Commentari de Bello Gallico, shapes how Rome understands the war. He is not merely fighting. He is narrating his own greatness. The making of loyalty. Years pass. The legions harden. These are no longer simply Roman soldiers. They are Caesar's soldiers. They march through snow and swamp. They endure hunger, ambush, relentless campaigning. They are rewarded with plunder, promoted for bravery, recognized by name. Caesar shares their hardships, rides among them, addresses them directly, remembers centurions personally. Loyalty shifts, not away from Rome entirely, but toward him, and that shift will matter more than any single battle. The rhythm of campaign. War in Gaul is not fought in single moments alone. It is fought in movement. The years begin to blur. Time does not move in sharp lines here. It flows like water across stone. Slow, patient, wearing the world away, one grain at a time. You walk with the legions through Gaul. Spring arrives first, melting the snows from mountain passes and opening the roads of war. The army stirs like a great beast waking from sleep. You hear it again. The steady rhythm of marching boots. The soft clink of armor rings and sword hilts. The muted breathing of thousands of soldiers moving as one. The Roman army is not simply a force. It is a civilization in motion. Life inside the legion. The Roman soldier is not a temporary warrior. He is a professional instrument of war. Each legionary carries his world upon his back, weapons, tools, rations, sleeping equipment. At night, the army becomes a small civilization. Cooking fires glow in orderly patterns across the camps. Men clean armor in silence. Some write letters to families far away in Italy. Others sharpen swords already sharp. You can hear quiet laughter occasionally, carried across the darkness when exhaustion releases tension. And in the center of this world stands Gaius Julius Caesar, moving between fires, speaking to officers, remembering names, rewarding bravery with public recognition. He does not isolate himself above the army. He becomes part of its rhythm. When winter returns, the legions withdraw to their fortified camps. Fires burn in the darkness, flickering against wooden palisades dusted with frost. The soldiers speak quietly beside the flames, sharpening weapons, repairing armor, telling stories of battles survived. And during those winter months, Gaius Julius Caesar writes the commentaries. His accounts of the Gallic campaigns will later become the Commentari de Bello Gallico. They are remarkable not for ornament but for clarity. Caesar writes in the third person. Caesar decided. Caesar marched. Caesar showed mercy. The style is deliberate, detached, as if he were not the author of history, but merely its witness. Yet every sentence is shaped to present a commander who is decisive, rational, and just. The work travels back to Rome during the campaign years. Citizens gather by torchlight to hear it read aloud in forums and private halls. Senators listen in marble chambers. Ordinary people hear stories of a general who shares the hardships of his men, who sleeps in camps, who faces arrows beside his soldiers. Through these words, Caesar becomes something unusual in Roman politics. Not only a military leader, but a narrative, a living legend being constructed while still alive. The Belgae campaign. The northern tribes are considered the fiercest in Gaul. Among them are the Nervi, a people who pride themselves on warrior discipline and isolation from Roman influence. The fighting there is unlike earlier battles. Dense forests swallow sound. Mist hangs low over the ground. The Belgae strike with sudden violence, launching ambushes from concealed positions. At one engagement, the Roman line falters under the ferocity of the assault. For a moment, it appears the army itself may break. Then you see Caesar step forward. He seizes a shield, not for ceremony, but for survival. He moves into the front ranks, his red cloak snapping in the wind, his voice cutting through the chaos as he speaks to the legionaries directly. The sight of their commander standing among them steadies the soldiers. The line holds. The Roman counterattack begins. The battle becomes another demonstration of disciplined endurance over raw ferocity. The war expands beyond simple land battles. Caesar orders the construction of a massive bridge across the Rhine River. The engineering itself becomes a declaration. Roman soldiers work day and night, driving timber piles into the riverbed, fastening beams with iron nails, weaving a structure that appears almost impossible for the technology of the time. In only 10 days, the bridge stands. You can imagine the sound of hammers striking wood, the smell of fresh timber in the cold river air. Caesar marches his legions across and stands on the far bank. Before him stretches Germanic forest land, dense, ancient, unknown. He does not launch a permanent invasion. Instead, after demonstrating Roman reach, he orders the bridge dismantled. The message is simple. Rome can go anywhere. Rome does not need to stay. In 55 and 54 BCE, Caesar sails across the channel to the island beyond the known world. The sea is unpredictable. Storms rise suddenly from the northern ocean, scattering ships, driving them against rocks. The Britons fight differently, striking from hills, retreating into mist, appearing and vanishing like spirits among the valleys. The expeditions are not designed for complete conquest. They are demonstrations. The world is larger than Rome, but Roman power is larger than the world men believe possible. When news reaches Rome, it spreads with astonishment. Caesar has sailed beyond the maps. The fire of rebellion. Gaul does not remain quiet. Resentment grows beneath Roman administration. The greatest eruption comes in 52 BCE. The young chieftain Vercingetorix rises to unite the tribes. This is unprecedented. Gaul has never truly been unified. He brings together warriors across tribal boundaries, forging alliance through shared hatred of Roman occupation. His strategy is not open battle. It is denial. The Gauls burn their own settlements, destroying food stores so the Roman army cannot forage. They vanish into forests, strike from hidden positions, withdraw again. The campaign becomes one of endurance rather than shock combat. Roman soldiers march under summer heat, across dust and exhausted rivers, hunger pressing at their stomachs like stone. Yet Caesar pursues relentlessly, through plains and forests, across wide river valleys, until the Gauls retreat to the fortified hill town of Alesia. The Siege of Alesia. Here history reaches its most extraordinary engineering moment. Caesar orders the construction of a double siege line. The inner wall encircles the town. The outer wall faces outward. Between them stand the Roman legions themselves, trapped inside their own fortifications, surrounded by enemies on both sides. It is strategic audacity bordering on madness and genius. When the Gallic relief army arrives, the air fills with sound. War horns, drums, thousands of warriors surging forward in waves, attempting to break the Roman lines. Day becomes night. Night becomes day again. Arrows fall like dark rain. Legionaries fight with exhaustion burning in their muscles, armor heavy with sweat and dust. Yet the lines do not collapse. Caesar moves along the walls, speaking to officers, directing reserves, maintaining the rhythm of defense. The outer Gallic army eventually breaks. Inside Alesia, starvation begins. Water and food disappear. The end is inevitable. The fall of Vercingetorix. Finally, the gates open. You see Vercingetorix ride out slowly. He is a proud man. He dismounts before Caesar. Piece by piece, he removes his armor and lays it at the Roman commander's feet. Silence follows. Not triumphal shouting, not anger, just the stillness after battle. Caesar spares his life. But the Gallic leader will later be held in captivity for years, preserved for the triumphal procession in Rome, where defeated enemies walk in chains before the crowds. His fate will eventually be execution, the customary end for enemies of the Republic. The silence after war. With Alesia, the Gallic resistance collapses. Gaul becomes a Roman province. Rich, stable, territorially vast. But something more important has changed. The army that conquered Gaul does not belong fully to the Senate anymore. It belongs to the man who led it for 8 years through hunger, battle, winter, and exhaustion. They are no longer merely Roman soldiers. They are Caesar's soldiers. Loyalty has shifted. And in Rome, distant voices begin to whisper that this shift may one day decide the fate of the Republic itself. The wind moves across the quiet fields of Gaul. The fires of war dim. History pauses. But destiny does not. 8 years of ceaseless marching, of dust and wind and endless motion. 8 years of campaign after campaign, battle after battle, the rhythm of conquest echoing like a distant heartbeat across the landscape of memory. You can feel it now, the heaviness of it, the quiet exhaustion beneath the armor. Hundreds of battles fought beneath gray skies and blazing suns. Thousands upon thousands of lives ended, each one a flicker of light extinguished in the vast current of history. Whole tribes have risen and fallen. Fields once green are scarred by trenches, forests by fire. An entire nation has bent beneath the weight of Rome. And through it all, always, there is Caesar, calm, measured, tireless. When the swords fall silent and the torches burn low, he writes. You can almost hear the faint scratch of his pen against parchment, the steady rhythm of thought and word and will. His prose is sharp, deliberate, clean, every sentence placed with precision. He is shaping the memory of the world, line by line. You feel him not just as a man, but as a force, a mind carving its reflection into eternity. His words will last long after the echo of the drums has faded, long after the armor has rusted, long after these legions have turned to dust. You sense that even now, that he is aware of what he is doing, that he is writing for the eyes of the future. His sentences are not merely reports. They are the foundation of his legend. He is becoming immortal in ink. Breathe again. Slowly, the night air begins to cool, soft against your skin. You can almost smell the faint scent of wood smoke drifting from the distant camps. The stars begin to appear, one by one, over the quiet plain. A calm settles over the world, the brief, fragile peace between battles, when soldiers rest and the land itself seems to exhale. In the distance, you can hear the low murmur of the legions, the muted clatter of armor being set aside, the quiet talk of men sharing stories by the fire. The familiar routines of military life continue. Horses being watered, bread baked over glowing embers, the faint hum of a lullaby from someone half asleep. You listen, and the sounds seem to blend together, soft and rhythmic, lulling you deeper, deeper still. But beneath this calm, something stirs. A change is coming. You can feel it subtle, but certain, like the slow turning of the tide. This life, this rhythm of march and rest, of battle and winter quarters, is about to shift forever. The air holds a quiet tension, as though the earth itself is waiting. For 8 years, these men have lived as soldiers of Rome. Now, they are becoming something more. The bond between them and their commander has grown unbreakable. Caesar has led them across rivers and through mountains, across the edges of the known world. They have seen him fight beside them, bleed beside them, lead them to triumph again and again. And now, as you breathe slowly, deeply, you feel the weight of what that means. The Republic, distant, political, fragile, no longer feels like their home. Their loyalty belongs to Caesar himself. You can feel that truth settling in like a slow, heavy fog. It fills the night, mingling with the smoke of the campfires and the quiet murmur of tired men. Take another breath. Let your shoulders sink. Let your mind drift. You are standing on the edge of something vast, the end of one world, the beginning of another. The years of war have passed like a long dream, and now, in this moment of stillness, everything hangs in the balance. The stars gleam cold and eternal above the camp. The fires flicker low. Somewhere Caesar still writes, his pen scratching softly through the quiet. And you, watching from the edge of history, feel yourself grow heavy, calm, and still as the night deepens and the world drifts slowly toward what comes next. Crossing the Rubicon, the point of no return. You are standing beside a small river. The year is 49 BCE. The water is not impressive, barely more than a stream, really. But this river, the Rubicon, marks the boundary between Caesar's province of Cisalpine Gaul and Italy proper. Under Roman law, no general may bring his army across this river without the Senate's permission. To do so is an act of war against the Republic itself. Caesar stands here with a single legion, the 13th. Behind him, in Gaul, wait his other legions. Ahead, in Rome, the Senate has ordered him to disband his army and return to the city as a private citizen. His enemies, led by Cato and other conservative senators, want him prosecuted for the illegal actions he took during his consulship a decade ago. Without his army, without the immunity his provincial command provides, he will be vulnerable to their legal attacks. He will be destroyed politically, possibly exiled or even killed. He also knows that Pompey, his old ally, has been turning against him. After Julia's death in childbirth 4 years ago, the personal bond between them dissolved. Pompey has been courted by the Senate, appointed as sole consul, given extraordinary powers. The implied message is clear. If Caesar will not submit to the Senate's authority, Pompey's legions will force him to submit. So Caesar faces a choice here, at this modest stream. He can obey the Senate, cross the Rubicon alone, and face almost certain political destruction. Or he can cross with his legion and plunge Rome into civil war. You watch his face. He is 51 years old now. His hair is thinning, his features sharper. He has aged during the Gallic campaigns, but remains vigorous, commanding. For a long moment, he simply stands there, looking at the water. He is not impulsive, despite what his enemies claim. He calculates, weighs outcomes, considers every angle. Finally, he speaks. The words are in Greek, a quote from a playwright. Etiou teta bei. It is both a quotation and a fatalistic acceptance. He's gambling everything, and he knows it. The legion crosses the Rubicon. The water barely reaches their knees. On the far side is Italy and civil war, and a destiny no one can foresee. What follows is not what anyone expected. Caesar marches south, and cities open their gates to him without resistance. There is no great enthusiasm for the Senate in Italy, no willingness to fight for senators who have been quarreling among themselves for decades. Caesar is known as a generous winner, a merciful conqueror. His propaganda precedes him. He promises clemency to all who surrender. He distributes grain to civilians. He pays for what his army needs, rather than simply taking it. Pompey and the Senate are caught off guard. They expected Caesar to negotiate, to delay, to give them time to prepare. Instead, he moves with shocking speed. Pompey abandons Rome without a fight, withdrawing south, then east, across the Adriatic Sea to Greece, where he can raise more legions from Rome's eastern provinces. Caesar enters Rome unopposed. He is technically an enemy of the state, but also the most powerful man in the city. He stays only briefly, long enough to seize the treasury and appoint magistrates loyal to him. Then he turns his attention to Spain, where Pompey has 7 legions under loyal commanders. "I go to meet an army without a general," Caesar says. "Then I will return to meet a general without an army." The Spanish campaign is swift and relatively bloodless. Caesar outmaneuvers Pompey's generals, traps their armies, forces their surrender. He shows the clemency he promised, allowing captured soldiers to join his legions or return home. He executes no one. This is deliberate policy. Caesar's clementia, his mercy, will be one of his defining characteristics. It is partly genuine magnanimity, partly brilliant politics. Every man he spares becomes a witness to his generosity, a living advertisement of his different kind of leadership. With Spain secured, Caesar returns to Rome, then prepares for the decisive confrontation. He must cross the sea to Greece and face Pompey's main army. It is winter, normally an impossible time for military operations, but Caesar does not wait for spring. He sails with half his army, leaving the rest to follow when they can. The crossing is dangerous. Storms threaten his ships, but he reaches the Greek coast and establishes a base. For months, the two armies maneuver around each other in Greece. Pompey has more men, better cavalry, securer supply lines. Caesar is outnumbered and far from his bases. But he refuses to give up, pressing Pompey constantly, seeking weakness, waiting for an opportunity. It comes at Pharsalus in the summer of 48 BCE. Pompey's officers pressure him to give battle, confident in their superior numbers. Pompey reluctantly agrees. The armies face each other across a plain. You stand and watch as they prepare. Caesar's legions number perhaps 22,000 men. Pompey's army is nearly twice that size. But you have learned by now that numbers alone do not determine victory. Caesar's soldiers are veterans of Gaul, hardened by years of campaigning, absolutely loyal to their general. Pompey's forces include many raw recruits, men conscripted from Rome's eastern provinces, who have never faced Caesar's legions in battle. The battle begins in the heat of midday. Pompey's cavalry charges Caesar's right flank, intending to sweep around and attack from behind. But Caesar has anticipated this. He has hidden a special reserve of infantry behind his cavalry, armed with pila, the heavy javelins that can punch through armor. When Pompey's horsemen charge, these infantrymen step forward and thrust their javelins upward, aiming for the riders' faces. It is brutal, unexpected. The cavalry breaks and flees. With Pompey's cavalry gone, Caesar's reserves sweep around and attack the enemy infantry from the side. The battle turns into a rout. Pompey's legions break and run. Pompey himself flees the field, abandoning his army, his camp, his cause. By nightfall, Caesar has won a complete victory. You watch as Caesar walks through Pompey's abandoned camp. It is laid out like a small city, with streets and pavilions, gardens planted with fresh turf, dining tents decorated with ivy. The meal that was being prepared for Pompey's victory celebration sits uneaten. Caesar looks at all this and reportedly says, "They would have had me condemned, despite all I have accomplished, if I had not appealed to my army for help. But there is also sorrow in victory. These dead were Romans, fellow citizens." Caesar orders his men to show respect for the enemy corpses, to give them proper burial. He does not celebrate. There is no triumph in civil war, only necessary triumph over those who forced him to this extremity. Pompey flees to Egypt, seeking refuge with the young pharaoh Ptolemy XIII. But Egypt does not want to anger the victor of Pharsalus. When Pompey's boat reaches shore, Egyptian officials row out to meet him. They invite him to transfer to their smaller boat to reach the beach. Pompey agrees, saying farewell to his wife and sons who watch from the ship. As the boat reaches the shallows, the Egyptians suddenly stab Pompey to death. They cut off his head to present to Caesar as a gift. Caesar arrives in Egypt days later, pursuing his defeated enemy. The Egyptians present him with Pompey's head, expecting gratitude. Instead, Caesar weeps. Whatever their political enmity, Pompey was once his ally, his friend, his son-in-law. He was a great Roman, and he deserved better than assassination on a foreign beach. Caesar orders an honorable funeral for Pompey's remains. He punishes the assassins. Breathe slowly now. Let the sadness of this moment settle over you. There is no joy in these victories, only the grim satisfaction of survival. The evening grows dark. Far away, in Rome, people are learning that the civil war is effectively over. But Caesar remains in Egypt, and his adventures there are not yet finished. The Egyptian interlude. You are in Alexandria now, the magnificent capital of Egypt. The city gleams with marble and limestone, broader and more geometrically planned than Rome. The famous lighthouse, the Pharos, rises on its island, its fire visible for miles at sea. The great library holds hundreds of thousands of scrolls. This is a city of learning and luxury, Greek culture transplanted to African soil, enriched by Egyptian wealth. But Egypt is in turmoil. The young pharaoh, Ptolemy XIII, is at war with his sister and co-ruler, Cleopatra VII. They are the last of the Ptolemaic dynasty, descendants of one of Alexander the Great's generals who took Egypt when Alexander's empire fractured. They are Greeks ruling an Egyptian kingdom, and their family is notorious for its internecine murders and marriages. Ptolemy and Cleopatra are both teenagers, and also husband and wife, following the Ptolemaic custom of sibling marriage. Caesar has come ostensibly to settle this dispute and collect debts Egypt owes Rome. But he has also come with only a small force, and he finds himself drawn into Egyptian politics more deeply than he intended. Cleopatra needs Caesar's support, but she is besieged in Alexandria by her brother's forces, unable to reach the palace where Caesar is staying. The solution she devises is famous. She has herself smuggled into the palace wrapped in a carpet, or perhaps a large sack. When the bundle is unrolled before Caesar, the young queen emerges. She is 21 years old, clever, educated, speaking multiple languages. She is not, contrary to later legend, particularly beautiful, but she has something more valuable: intelligence and charm. You watch as she makes her case to Caesar. Egypt is torn by civil war, just as Rome was. She's the legitimate ruler, driven out by ambitious advisors manipulating her younger brother. She appeals to Caesar's sense of justice, to his power, to his vanity. Caesar is 52, Cleopatra 24, but age differences mean little in their world. What matters is power, and they recognize it in each other. Caesar decides to support Cleopatra's claim to the throne. This decision triggers what becomes known as the Alexandrine War. Ptolemy's forces attack the palace, trapping Caesar and his small army. What follows is months of siege and combat in the streets of Alexandria. Caesar's situation is genuinely dangerous. His forces are vastly outnumbered. At one point, he must swim for his life when his position is overrun, holding important documents above the water as he flees. But reinforcements arrive eventually, and Caesar's military genius prevails even in urban warfare. Ptolemy's forces are defeated. The young pharaoh drowns in the Nile, weighed down by his golden armor. Cleopatra is confirmed as queen, ruling jointly with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, a child who poses no threat to her power. Caesar lingers in Egypt. He sails up the Nile with Cleopatra on a luxurious river barge, viewing the ancient monuments, the temples, and pyramids. It is the closest thing to a vacation this relentlessly driven man has ever taken. Cleopatra becomes pregnant with Caesar's child, a son who will be called Caesarion, which roughly translates to the little Caesar. But Rome is calling. There are still enemies to defeat, provinces to secure, a government to reorganize. Caesar leaves Egypt reluctantly, leaving Cleopatra as his client queen, a valuable ally controlling the wealth of the Nile. He campaigns through Asia Minor, defeating Pharnaces, a rebellious client king, in a battle so swift and complete that Caesar sends his famous report back to Rome. Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. 3 words to describe a campaign. The economy of language masks the brutality, but that is Caesar's way. Make it seem easy. Make it seem inevitable. There are more battles. Pompey's sons and remaining supporters have raised new armies in North Africa and Spain. Caesar defeats them at Thapsus in Africa, then at Munda in Spain. The Battle of Munda is hard fought, perhaps the closest Caesar comes to defeat. But once again, his will and his veterans prevail. The Pompeian cause is finished. After 4 years of civil war, Caesar is the undisputed master of the Roman world. Let yourself rest in this moment of completion. The wars are over. 1. Caesar stands alone atop the Roman state, more powerful than any man in the Republic's 500-year history. The question now is, what will he do with his power? Dictatorship and reform. You walk through Rome now, and the city feels different. It has been scarred by civil war, not physically, for little actual fighting occurred here, but spiritually. The certainties that governed life for centuries have dissolved. The Republic's constitution was built on checks and balances, on no single man holding too much power. But Caesar holds all the power. He has been appointed dictator, initially for limited terms, but then perpetually. He is dictator for life. This is not tyranny in the way you might imagine it. Caesar does not rule through terror. He does not execute his enemies wholesale. His watchword is clemency. He forgives almost everyone who fought against him, welcoming them back into public life, appointing them to office. Cicero, who supported Pompey, is pardoned and respected. Even Brutus, who fought at Pharsalus against Caesar, is forgiven and given high office. Caesar seems to believe that by showing mercy, by refusing to prosecute old grudges, he can heal the Republic's wounds. But his very mercy is an assertion of power. To forgive is to first judge. And who is Caesar to judge senators, to pardon Roman citizens? His clemency implies a superiority that grates against Roman ideals of equality among the nobility. The senators bow to him, but many resent having to bow. You watch as Caesar throws himself into governance with the same energy he brought to war. The Republic has been neglected during decades of political chaos. Basic functions of government have atrophied. Caesar reforms everything. He reforms the calendar first, appropriately enough for a Pontifex Maximus. The old Roman calendar was chaotic, requiring periodic adjustments by priests, who often made them for political rather than astronomical reasons. Caesar consults with Greek astronomers and introduces a solar calendar based on Egyptian models. It has 365 days, with an extra day added every 4th year. It is logical, predictable, scientific. 2,000 years later, with minor modifications, the world still uses Caesar's calendar. The month of his birth, Quintilis, is renamed Julius in his honor. He drains the swamps around Rome, improving public health. He begins construction projects, new forums, temples, basilicas. He plans a great library to rival Alexandria's. He settles tens of thousands of his veterans in colonies throughout the empire, giving them land and creating stable communities that will spread Roman culture. He grants citizenship to entire provinces. He reforms the courts, limits the terms of provincial governors to reduce corruption, reforms the grain dole to reduce fraud. The stream of legislation is breathtaking. Every aspect of Roman life seems to attract his attention and his reforming energy. He even passes sumptuary laws limiting luxury at banquets, though no one expects these to be enforced. He is trying to restore old Roman virtue while simultaneously transforming Roman government. But there is a contradiction at the heart of everything he does. He is reforming the Republic while simultaneously destroying it. Every reform, however beneficial, is enacted by dictatorial decree, not through the traditional legislative process of debate and consensus. He is making Rome work better, but only by concentrating all power in his own hands. The honors accumulate. The Senate heaps them on him, perhaps hoping to satisfy his ambition, perhaps simply because refusing is dangerous. He is granted the title Pater Patriae, Father of the Fatherland. His image appears on coins, unprecedented for a living Roman. He is given the right to wear triumphal dress at all public occasions. Statues of him are erected throughout the city. One shows him standing on a globe representing the world. Some honors he refuses. When Mark Antony, his loyal supporter, offers him a crown during a public festival, Caesar pushes it away. The crowd cheers. He refuses again. More cheers. The message is carefully staged. Caesar does not want to be king. Romans have hated kings since they expelled their last one 5 centuries ago. Caesar knows better than to claim that title, however much he might want it. But he is king in all but name. Some whisper that he plans to move the capital to Alexandria or Troy, to rule from the east like an oriental monarch. These are probably false rumors, but the fact that people believe them shows how far Caesar has drifted from Roman norms. You walk with him through the forum now. It is evening, and the long shadows stretch across the paving stones. Caesar is surrounded by clients and favor seekers, by senators paying respect, by ordinary citizens hoping for a word with the great man. He remains seated while senators approach him, a breach of protocol that many notice and resent. Is it arrogance? Or is it simply that his body is beginning to fail him? Caesar suffers from what ancient sources call the falling sickness. Epilepsy, probably, or perhaps small strokes. Several times in his final years, he collapses in public, his body convulsing. These episodes frighten people. They are reminded that Caesar is mortal, that all this power rests in one man's aging body. At night, in the Domus Publica, Caesar plans his next campaign. He cannot seem to stop. The Parthian Empire, Rome's great rival in the east, remains unconquered. A Parthian army destroyed Roman legions under Crassus 15 years ago at Carrhae, a humiliation that still burns. Caesar is assembling the largest army Rome has ever fielded. 16 legions, 10,000 cavalry. He plans to march east, to conquer Parthia, perhaps to continue all the way to India, emulating Alexander the Great. He is 61 years old, but still planning conquests. The campaign is scheduled to begin in mid-March. Caesar has already sent advance forces. He has appointed officials to govern in his absence. He assumes he will leave Rome, win another great victory, add new provinces to the empire, return covered in fresh glory. But there are men who have decided he must not leave Rome, who have decided, in fact, that he must not live. Breathe slowly. The air grows heavy with foreboding, but you remain calm, detached. This is history. These events have already happened. They cannot be changed, only witnessed. The evening deepens. Somewhere in Rome, men are meeting in secret, swearing oaths, sharpening daggers. The Ides of March. You wake on the morning of March 15th, 44 BCE. The date is known in the Roman calendar as the Ides of March, simply a way of marking the middle of the month, no more ominous than any other day. But this particular Ides of March will echo through history. Caesar has been warned. A soothsayer told him to beware this date. His wife Calpurnia has had nightmares of his death and begs him not to go to the Senate meeting scheduled for this morning. There are rumors of a conspiracy, whispers of danger. Friends advise caution, but Caesar dismisses the warnings. He has lived with danger his entire life. He has faced Germanic warriors and Gallic cavalry charges. He has been besieged in Alexandria, ambushed in Spain. He has crossed the Rubicon and survived civil war. What does he have to fear from a Senate meeting? There is also something else. Caesar has dismissed his personal guard, his Spanish bodyguards who have protected him for years. It is unclear why. Perhaps he trusts in the Roman tradition that makes the person of a magistrate sacrosanct. Perhaps he believes his clemency has earned genuine loyalty. Perhaps he is simply tired of being afraid, tired of living like a target. Or perhaps, as some sources suggest, he has become fatalistic, believing that constant vigilance is no life at all, that death will come when it comes, and living in fear is its own kind of death. He decides to attend the Senate meeting. It is to be held in the Theater of Pompey, in a hall attached to the theater complex, since the Senate House itself is under reconstruction. There is irony in this. Caesar will die in a building complex erected by his old rival and friend. You walk with him through the streets of Rome. The morning is bright, the city already bustling with activity. People recognize Caesar, bow, call out greetings. He stops to speak with a Greek teacher of rhetoric, discussing philosophy. Everything seems normal, ordinary. Just another day in the life of Rome's master. As Caesar approaches the theater of Pompey, a man in the crowd presses close, trying to hand him a document. It is a warning, a list of the conspirators' names. But Caesar is surrounded by people, all wanting his attention, all pressing papers into his hands. He takes the document but does not read it, adding it to the sheaf of petitions and letters he carries. The warning goes unread. The Senate is already assembled when Caesar arrives. About 60 men are part of the conspiracy, though not all will actually strike. The leaders include men Caesar trusted. Gaius Cassius Longinus, a skilled general whom Caesar pardoned after Pharsalus. Marcus Junius Brutus, whom Caesar may have believed was his own son. Rumor claims Caesar had an affair with Brutus's mother, Servilia, decades ago. Decimus Brutus Albinus, one of Caesar's most trusted officers from the Gallic Wars, a man he has named in his will. These are not marginal figures nursing old grievances. They are men at the center of Caesar's regime. Their stated motive is the preservation of the Republic. They see Caesar as a tyrant, his perpetual dictatorship as the death of Roman freedom. They style themselves liberators, comparing themselves to Brutus's ancestor who led the overthrow of Rome's last king. They believe they are saving Rome by killing Caesar, but mixed with republican idealism is personal resentment. They are proud men, descended from consuls and generals, and they must bow to Caesar's supremacy. His clemency reminds them daily that they owe their positions to his mercy. They want to be his equals, but he will not let them be. Some also fear his planned Parthian campaign. If he wins, and they have learned never to bet against Caesar winning, he will return more powerful, more untouchable than ever. He must be stopped now, before he leaves Rome. Caesar enters the Senate hall. He is immediately surrounded by conspirators pretending to petition him. One grabs his toga, pulling it down from his shoulders. A signal. Another strikes the first blow. A knife thrust aimed at Caesar's neck, but that grazes his shoulder instead. For a moment, Caesar tries to defend himself. He is old, but still strong. He grabs the arm of his attacker, stabs it with his stylus, the pointed writing instrument he carries. He cries out, not in fear, but in outrage. But then the other conspirators close in, and the attack becomes a frenzy. 23 stab wounds. The senators turned assassins are clumsy with their daggers. They wound each other in their eagerness to participate in the killing. Blood pools on the Senate floor. When Caesar sees Marcus Brutus among the attackers, something breaks in him. The ancient sources give him different last words. Some say he spoke in Greek. You too, child. Others say he simply pulled his toga over his head, choosing to die with dignity, unseen. Perhaps he said nothing at all. Perhaps he simply stopped fighting, recognizing that if even Brutus has turned against him, there is no point in struggling. He falls at the base of Pompey's statue. Even the location carries grim irony, killed at the feet of the rival he defeated. His body crumples, the blood-soaked toga draped over his face. Gaius Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, victor of the Civil War, dictator of Rome, dies at the age of 55, cut down by men he trusted, in the Senate he dominated, on a bright March morning. The assassins stand over his body, bloody daggers in hand, expecting what? Acclaim? Gratitude? Or perhaps liberation? But what happens next is not what they envisioned. The other senators flee in panic. The slaves and attendants scatter. For a moment, the conspirators stand alone in the hall with Caesar's corpse. Then they venture outside, displaying their bloody weapons, calling out that the tyrant is dead, that Rome is free. But the Roman people do not celebrate. They are shocked, confused, afraid. Many have benefited from Caesar's largesse. The veterans remember his generosity. The common people remember the grain distributions, the games, the public works providing employment. What they see is not liberation but chaos. The conspirators have made a fundamental miscalculation. They believed that killing Caesar would restore the Republic. But the Republic was already dead. It died at the Rubicon, or perhaps long before. Caesar was not the disease but the symptom. Removing him does not cure Rome's underlying conditions. The concentration of wealth, the loyalty of armies to generals rather than to the state, the breakdown of traditional restraints, the simple fact that the republican system no longer works for an empire this vast. Caesar's body lies in the Senate hall for some time before 3 slaves arrive to carry it home. They place him on a litter and bear him through the streets to the Domus Publica. One arm hangs down, swinging with the bearer's steps. It is an undignified end for a dignified life. Breathe deeply now. Let the tragedy of this moment settle over you. But do not let it disturb your peace. This happened more than 2,000 years ago. The pain is long since gone. Only the story remains, and you are simply a witness, watching from a safe distance as history unfolds its inexorable patterns. The aftermath. 3 days pass in confusion and fear. The conspirators, calling themselves liberators, fortify themselves on the Capitoline Hill. They expect either attack or acclaim, but receive neither. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant and co-consul, emerges as the key figure. He negotiates with the conspirators, arranges a grudging amnesty, but also secures Caesar's will and the right to deliver a funeral oration. You stand in the forum now. A massive crowd has gathered. Caesar's body, prepared for burial, rests on a funeral couch in a gilded shrine. Mark Antony stands to speak. He is a skilled orator, and he uses every trick of rhetoric to move the crowd. He reads Caesar's will, which leaves generous bequests to the Roman people. His gardens across the Tiber to be made public parks. 300 sesterces to every citizen. He displays Caesar's blood-stained toga, pointing out each rent made by the daggers. He speaks of Caesar's achievements, his conquests, his clemency, his love for Rome. The crowd's mood shifts from grief to rage. They are mourning not just Caesar but stability, security, the promise of order he represented. They begin to riot. They search for the conspirators to kill them, but the liberators have already fled the city. Frustrated, the mob seizes benches and platforms from the forum, builds a funeral pyre right there in the heart of Rome, and cremates Caesar's body on the spot. The flames rise high, visible throughout the city, smoke drifting across the 7 hills. It is illegal to cremate anyone within Rome's sacred boundary, but the law no longer matters. The crowd does as it wishes. They are mourning not just a man, but an era. With Caesar's death, whatever hope there was for peaceful reform dies too. Rome is sliding toward chaos again, toward another civil war that will be even more destructive than the last. But something else emerges from Caesar's death, something he could not have foreseen. His murder makes him immortal. Alive, he was controversial, resented even as he was obeyed. Dead, he becomes a martyr, a symbol. The conspirators intended to kill a tyrant and free Rome. Instead, they created a legend. The Senate declares Caesar a god. It is not merely flattery of the dead. The Senate recognizes that Caesar has joined the pantheon, has become Divus Julius, the divine Julius. A temple will be erected in his honor. His image will be worshipped. He is no longer just a great man. He has become something beyond human. His adopted son and heir seizes on this. Gaius Octavius is only 18 years old when Caesar dies, but Caesar named him in his will as adopted son and heir. The young man immediately takes Caesar's name, calling himself Gaius Julius Octavian, but he insists on being called simply Caesar. He is the son of a god now, and he intends to make that matter. What follows is 13 more years of civil war. Mark Antony and Octavian initially cooperate, hunting down and destroying the liberators. Brutus and Cassius die by suicide after their armies are defeated at Philippi. The other conspirators are killed one by one. Caesar is avenged in blood, but then Antony and Octavian turn on each other, just as Caesar and Pompey did before them. Antony takes the east and allies with Cleopatra, who has returned to Egypt with Caesarion, Caesar's son. Octavian controls the west. The final showdown comes at Actium in 31 BCE, a naval battle where Octavian's fleet defeats Antony and Cleopatra's combined forces. Antony and Cleopatra flee to Alexandria, but there is no escape. Octavian pursues them. Both commit suicide rather than be captured. Octavian has Caesarion killed. 2 Caesars are one too many, he reportedly says. Cleopatra's children by Antony are spared and raised in Rome, but Caesar's only known son is eliminated, a threat removed. Octavian returns to Rome as sole master of the Roman world. But he is clever, more politically astute than his adoptive father. He does not call himself dictator. He carefully preserves the forms of the Republic while holding all real power. He takes the title Augustus, the revered one, and rules for over 40 years, bringing stability and prosperity. The Republic officially dies, though few notice, because Augustus is so careful to pretend it lives. The Roman Empire begins, though Romans don't call it that. They call it the restoration of peace, the Pax Romana. And in all of this, Caesar's shadow looms large. Every subsequent Roman emperor takes his name as a title. Caesar becomes synonymous with absolute rule. Centuries later, foreign rulers will still claim his name. Kaiser in German, Tsar in Russian, Caesar in countless languages. His life and death reshape the ancient world and echo through all the ages that follow. Legacy, the long shadow. You drift now through the centuries, watching Caesar's influence ripple outward through time. His immediate legacy is clear enough. He conquered Gaul, doubling the size of Rome's empire. He introduced reforms that lasted centuries. His military commentaries became textbooks for generals. His calendar ordered time itself, but his deeper legacy is more complex. Caesar proved that the Roman Republic's constitution, crafted for a city-state, could not survive the strains of empire. One man with an army and sufficient will could override all the careful checks and balances. After Caesar, Rome needed strongmen to function. The Republic was finished, replaced by emperors who ruled behind republican facades. This was not Caesar's intention, perhaps. The sources suggest he genuinely believed he could reform and strengthen the Republic, not destroy it. But intentions matter less than consequences. By crossing the Rubicon, by making himself dictator, by concentrating such power in his own hands, he made the Republic's end inevitable. Yet he also gave Rome what it needed in that moment: a strong hand to end civil war, to rationalize administration, to expand citizenship, to integrate provinces into a true empire rather than a patchwork of conquered territories. His clemency, controversial as it was, showed that power could be exercised with mercy. His vision of a unified Mediterranean world under Roman law shaped the empire for centuries. As you drift through time, you see his influence everywhere. Poets write of him. Plutarch crafts his biography, pairing him with Alexander the Great as one of history's greatest men. Shakespeare puts him on stage, immortalizing the Ides of March in English verse. Historians endlessly debate him. Was he a tyrant destroying freedom, or a necessary reformer? A power-hungry autocrat, or a man pushed to extremes by his enemies? Both. Neither. Something more complex than these simple categories allow. You see how later generals study his campaigns, how the Gallic Wars becomes a military textbook read for 2,000 years. You see how rulers invoke his name to justify their own power. You see how democrats invoke the liberators to justify tyrannicide. Caesar becomes a mirror in which each age sees what it wants to see. But beneath all the controversy and myth, beneath the centuries of interpretation and appropriation, remains a man. A man born into a declining aristocratic family who determined to make his mark on history. A man who was brilliant and ambitious and often cruel, but also capable of mercy and affection and loyalty. A man who loved his daughter Julia deeply and grieved her death. A man who wrote clear, beautiful prose. A man who could be generous to friends and ruthless to enemies. A man who risked everything repeatedly and usually won. A man who believed in his own destiny so completely that he made others believe in it too. He changed the world through force of will. He showed that one person could reshape history, could bend empires to their vision. Whether this was good or bad depends on where you stand, what you value, what kind of world you want to live in. But there is no question that he mattered. Nearly 2,100 years after his death, his name is still known. His story is still told. His legacy still shapes how we think about power, about ambition, about the price of glory. Evening on the Tiber. You stand now beside the Tiber River as evening comes to Rome. The sun is setting behind the 7 hills, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. The river flows steadily, as it has flowed for thousands of years, carrying its dark water down to the sea. The city grows quiet as day fades into night. This is the same river Caesar knew, flowing past the same hills, though the city itself has changed beyond recognition. The temples and forums he built are ruins now, or buried, or transformed into churches and museums. The people who cheered him and mourned him are dust. The empire he helped create has risen and fallen and passed into legend. Rome itself is just one city among many now, no longer the center of the world. But on a quiet evening, standing beside this river, you can almost feel the presence of all that history, the weight of centuries, the lives lived and lost, the ambitions realized and destroyed, the endless human story of striving and struggling, building and destroying, loving and killing. Caesar walked beside this river. He stood perhaps where you stand now, looking at the water, thinking of campaigns to come, of enemies to defeat, of glory to win. Did he ever simply stand and watch the river flow, without scheming, without planning? Did he ever just be still, at peace, present in the moment? The sources don't tell us, but you hope he did. You hope there were moments when even Caesar, driven Caesar, could simply breathe and exist without urgency. The evening deepens. The first stars appear in the darkening sky. The sounds of the city fade to a gentle murmur. You stand beside the eternal river, neither in Caesar's time nor your own, but suspended in the timeless moment between day and night, between memory and dream. Let yourself feel the peace of this place, this moment. History is simply story now. Violence and triumph faded into words and images. The struggles that seemed so urgent, so vital, have passed. The men who fought and schemed and killed are long since gone. Their bones are dust. Their empires have crumbled. But the river flows on, and the stars appear, and the evening brings its gentle mercy to all things. You breathe slowly, deeply, letting the day fade completely. The story is finished. Caesar's life has been told, his legacy acknowledged, his memory honored. There is nothing more to do now but rest. The Tiber flows quietly in the darkness. Rome sleeps, and you, having walked through centuries, having witnessed ambition and achievement and assassination, having seen how empires rise and fall like the tide, you finally allow yourself to drift. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of your body, comfortable and still. The ancient world recedes, dissolving into mist and memory. You are safe, at peace, surrounded by the gentle darkness of sleep. Let yourself go now. Let the stories fade. Let the images blur and soften. The river flows. The stars shine. The night embraces everything with equal tenderness. And you, carried on the current of these gentle images, these quiet words, drift finally into deep and dreamless sleep. Rest now. Sleep peacefully. The history has been told. The journey is complete.